This is Robert with Pioneer Smokehouses, and today we're going to do some jerky in the Big Chief smoker. So first thing that we are going to do here is we're going to talk about the jerky a little bit. I went to the local store and I found some London broil, and it was at a reasonable price, so I got 3 pounds for $15. $5 a pound right now is a great price, so I went ahead and picked that up. Now that's 2 steaks because they were actually buy one get one free, and they're pretty large. I took them and I cut them at an angle crossways across the grain. Now I varied each steak so one would have one consistency and one would have the other, and you can see in the pictures here how I cut them, and again at a slight angle. I want to go across it but not completely along it, so that way it does have some fiber, but that way it's not impossible to chew. Then after that I went ahead and prepared the marinade. Now you can also do brine with some meats, but if you do brine, the first rule of thumb is you always want to rinse it off. Here's the thing, brine is 1 gallon of water to 1 cup of salt, and then whatever flavorings you want, and it'll work its way into the meat and then come back out. But you will have to rinse that off or it'll be like eating a salt lick. Now with a marinade, you put just a little salt in it, and usually you can go about an hour, and that works out pretty well. Any longer than that, and it actually starts to pull moisture out of the meat. Because I have a little bit of salt in my marinade, it will still have the osmosis effect and pull liquid out and then return liquid back in. But I didn't want to overdo it because I didn't want to have to rinse the meat. And jerky does taste well with a little bit of salt in it. It just kind of goes together pretty good. So what I did was I took 1 can of low sodium beef stock, and then I took a 1/4 cup of low sodium soy sauce, a 1/4 cup of Worcestershire, and a 1/4 cup of my homemade seasoning mix, the 3-2-1-1. There's a lot of pepper in that, so it will be a peppery jerky, but when I did the marinade, a lot of that pepper came off, so some of it will flavor the meat and some of it's sticking, which is great. So first thing I did out here was I went ahead and plugged in the smoker. We want the smoker to be hot and ready to go, and if I look down in there, looks like it's red. It just barely turns color, but you can reach down in there without touching the element, of course, and you can feel that it's hot. Now I have a lot of different flavors of wood chips, and with beef jerky or any beef in general, I like to use a stronger flavor. Today I have a bag of hickory that was right on the top, so I decided to go with that. I do like pecan for just about everything, but I don't have this in pecan. So I went ahead and filled the pan, and then make sure that you don't get it too much stuff against the edges, because it will burn from kind of the center on out, and then around the edges will just get wasted if you fill it all the way to the top. So you really kind of want to make a little mountain in there, and then just big enough to go inside the door. I'm going to pop a picture of the door up there for you so you can see what I'm doing, and just because I don't want to move the camera down here, I'm just going to slide that right in there and close the door, and then it'll get starting to warm up a little bit. So over here we have the tray where all the meat racks go into. I have the bottom one in here, and what I usually do is I usually put a piece of tin foil there, especially if I'm gonna use like a pellet smoker or something. If I'm doing a lower temperature smoke, what I'll do is I'll do a pellet smoker, and then I don't have to watch it. It'll just keep smoking for hours with one of these pellet trays. Just want to show you what I'm talking about. This is what I mean when I say a pellet tray. And I love these things. Fill it with pellets, light the corner, and let it go. I went ahead and I put the jerky in here, let it dry a little bit. I'm going to show you this. If you see here, it's on the tray, and then it's on a grill mat. I'm going to pull that out there. This is not one of the Smoke Chief grill mat brand, but I do have some of the smaller ones that I just picked up recently. I had some of the big ones years ago, and then I ruined it by putting it in my propane grill, so don't do that. I think that they're rated for up to 600 degrees, and most propane grills are well up into the 700 range. So I've got that sitting in there like that. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to toss in a piece of tin foil. This one's really flimsy. Normally I would use a larger piece, something really heavy, but because I'm not using the pellet tray today, I'm just going to use this little flimsy piece. And if I were using the pellet tray, I would put it right here and just let it sit there for a while, and it will pick up most of the drippings. If I wasn't using the pellet tray like today, I'll just put it down here. And I'm just using a piece of charcoal to hold it because it's a little windy out here. Wind rolls up the creek on a pretty regular basis. So now it's all ready to go. I'm going to go ahead and take the lid off here. I'm going to drop this in. When I put it in, I'll push the legs against the one side and then lower it down in there. I want to note that the smoker is not directly on the ground. If you see it in the picture here that I'll put back up, it shows that there's two little blocks there that I set the smoker on. The legs go through the holes and sit down on there, but this also keeps the smoker off of burnable surfaces. Don't set your smoker directly on a piece of wood or on a deck. Make sure that you put it on gravel or concrete. Now you kind of have to squeeze that down on there, and once you get it down, then it just pops down in place. Now, we just need to wait for it to start smoking. This whole process is going to take somewhere around 6 to 8 hours. It really depends on how well done you like your jerky. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll do a heavy smoke, and then I'll take it in the house and put it in the oven on a really low temperature to finish drying out. And that also prevents the jerky from being any bit of moist when I go to put it in bags. And if it's moist, then it will mold. So you don't want that. You want it to be dry so it's shelf stable. I will take some of it that I'm only going to eat right away, and I won't put it in the oven. We'll be back after the smoke starts rolling. That'll be 5 minutes for me and about 1 second for you. It has been 5 minutes, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to take a look here. Now, I can clearly see the smoke coming out, but I don't know that you can. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open this lid, and we should see a big puff of smoke. It's rolling right out of there. So we're going to burn through this pan of wood chips, and then I'm going to try a little trick to add a little bit of different flavor to this. And I think you're going to enjoy this. We're going to put charcoal in the pan, but we need to have it lit and going, and we need to have the ashes in the pan to protect it. So for you, we'll be back in a second. For me, it'll be about 45 minutes. We have just about completely burned through that pan of wood chips. You can see that there's still just a little bit of smoke coming around the edges there. I hope you can see. But I don't want to open the lid. I just want to be able to get the smoke chips and move on. First thing I did was that I lit a small amount of charcoal in the charcoal chimney. And here's a picture of the inside of that for you. And it's just about there. It's white around the edges. We'd like it to be a little better than that. Gonna go ahead and pull this out and check on it. And you can see it's still smoldering, but for the most part, it's pretty much done. I went ahead and grabbed another pan, and this is a replacement pan that I bought, and I filled it up just across the bottom, so I covered the bottom well. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna transfer some of these used chips in there, just as a little bit of a bed. I want to show you something. Right here around the edges, you can see that the chips are not completely burned, and that's what happens. Down the middle it burns well, but around the edges sometimes it doesn't burn at all. Just a little bit of char around the edges there. The reason we want to add this is because we're going to put the charcoal in there, and the burned up wood chips won't catch on fire. I'll dump this in the fire pit after I turn the camera off. Something else that you can do if you want to put a layer on there is that you can use some pea gravel. We have a lot of pea gravel from the creek and everything here. So you can just put a little layer of that on there and it'll separate the dry wood chips from the other ones. Now it's just barely good enough here. And we're gonna go ahead and feed that in. Nice thing here is that the wind is actually giving it a little blast there to keep it going. Set that to the side. Actually, let's throw on some charcoal scraps here. Oh, it's nice and warm. We're going to go ahead and put this in there, and what's going to happen is you can see it's smoking just a little bit. Between the lit charcoal and the smoker, that was full right to the top, so I kind of had to jimmy it in there a little bit, and it looks pretty good now. So between the heating element in the smoker and the wood chips that are in the bottom and the lit charcoal, it's going to burn through all that. The nice thing about it is it's going to add that charcoal flavor, and there is no lighter fluid involved, so you're not going to pick up any lighter fluid flavor at all. So after that burns through, we'll be adding one more tray of wood chips, and that'll be all the smoke flavoring that we're going to add. This will be a little bit milder, but like I said, it adds that charcoal flavor, which is different than the wood flavor. I'll be back in about an hour to check on this. For you, that'll be a couple of seconds. So I took a look inside the pan there and gave it a little shake a few minutes ago and kind of got things settled in a little bit. The charcoal probably burned about 2/3 of the way, and the wood chips are pretty much all gone. So I got a new pan set up with a couple of lumps of charcoal in the bottom and packed full of wood chips. And I'm gonna go ahead and put that in there and let it start from the beginning. Not pre-lighting it this time. That little chunk there looked like it was good to burn. You give it a little shake like that, and the heavy pieces kind of drop to the bottom and the loose stuff comes right up to the top. So we're going to go ahead and run that one for another hour, and then I'll take my first peek inside and see how they look. And hopefully they look like they've taken enough smoke and they look safe to eat. And if they are, I'll sample one and see how it is. I'm sure that they are, because they did have a lot of time in the refrigerator to work through that marinade. So we'll be back in a couple of seconds for you. That'll be an hour for me. It's time to check the jerky and see how it's doing. I have not peeked or looked in here at all. And first thing I'll do is I'm going to go ahead and pull out the pan. I'm going to pull out one of the little pieces from the middle, and I'm going to show you right here. So this is nowhere near finished, but it is beef. So it is cooked through. It needs a bit more smoke. So I'm going to take this and dump it in the cold pan. Those charcoal briquettes really didn't get going. I'm going to fill this hot pan up. Just a little more here. So you can see we got going there, and they're a little crispy around the edges on the briquettes, so they did start to light, but really it's just not hot enough in there to get these things going. So you have to light them before you put them in. And I think that's what I'm gonna do, is I'm gonna go ahead and light these on the side and then toss them in on top after that starts smoking. So we're gonna go ahead and burn this pan of wood chips and just let it roll for 3 more hours. So I wanted to get one more clip in tonight. I'm gonna go ahead and let this keep running until bedtime, and then I'll transfer it over into a preheated oven and just turn the oven off and let it finish in there overnight, and then we'll do the final clip in the morning. We're gonna go ahead and we're gonna try a piece right now. Like I always say, you want to avoid opening the smoker as much as possible. So I grabbed a couple of little pieces right out of the middle here. This one's pretty chunky, so it's not going to be dried out. That is a perfect smoke level, and the flavor is excellent. Now this piece right here, it's starting to come around a little bit, but it's really thin. So that's why it's going to cook first. That is great, and once this dries up a bit, it's going to be right on target. That's the nice thing about making beef jerky, is that you can sample it a little bit in the middle of your cook, and you don't have to worry about getting sick or anything. And obviously you want to use good food safety. Make sure you cleaned everything, make sure you get some cure time in it and keep it cool until you're cooking. But yeah, that's good. I pretty much covered what we're gonna do here. I'm gonna let it run until bedtime, and then at bedtime, I'm gonna take it out of the smoker and drop it in the oven and just let it dry out in there. I'm not gonna run the oven. It will be heated, so that way when it goes in there, it'll have that heat and it'll dry up. So as I planned, I went to pull these out. It's almost bedtime, and I was gonna go ahead and toss them in the oven. I preheated the oven, moved the racks around, so that way I could finish drying them. I got out there and took a look, and they're almost close enough to done that I think that they're gonna air dry and be completed. I'm gonna go ahead and pull one off here, and the bottom ones actually turned out just a little bit better than the top ones. They are completely done. And I'm gonna pull this in here and see if you can get a good look at this, and hopefully the light cooperates. You got the little marks from the grill mat there, and then this piece is just gonna come right apart like that, just like that, and then just chewy like normal jerky, and the flavor is right on. I knew that when I tested it that last time that the smoke level was where I want it to be. Smoky, not bitter, and that little charcoal flavor is in there, which I really like to add if I can. This is some really good looking stuff. I'm going to pop a close-up picture right here so you can get another look at it from the camera. And I hope you enjoyed that. Basically, really simple process and really easy to do. The smoker, the Big Chief, runs around 160 to 165 degrees. But if you have any type of smoker, like a hot plate in a box, you can make this simple jerky. And with a good meat, it comes out amazing. So thanks for watching. If you saw anything you like, there'll be affiliate links below in the description. And if you use those, I will get compensated, so I appreciate it. Have a great day.